So what's it like when you have to come to school and put your cell phones away?
So when I come to school, it's like a whole nother thing. Like it's just habit that I text and stuff, and you know, some teachers care, but other teachers they tell you to put it away, and you know, I get frustrated because it's just my way of life now. Like I've evolved into that because of like where I came from, my family, and it's just a habit for me now, and I find myself getting in trouble or just, you know, texting in class and stuff, or like Googling and then forgetting I'm not allowed to use my Google or like use my phone because teachers think I'm texting. So in a lot of ways it like holds me back, I think.
I feel it really fragments the lesson in a way that interferes with the learning. They're going to be looking at their texts and then listening to me and then looking at the text and listening to me. And without that constant stream that's coming from me, they're going to only be picking up bits and pieces.
Texting is harmless. If you're on vibrate and you're not disrupting anyone, nobody knows. And only the teachers that care, the only ones that bother them, because they just can't, they don't understand how it's evolving, and they don't understand that it's just new technology, and you know, they just don't want it. It's new to them, so they can't accept it.
New technologies come in and then they get normalized. So right now everybody's excited about texting. Well, texting is really an old technology. It's been around for a long time. It's just that schools have made an issue of it, so it's become a new media issue. It's a site of struggle within schools.
The school board created a policy, and the policy was to allow schools to create their own policies. And they wanted us to get information from school councils, their opinion, from teaching staff, their opinion, and from students, their opinion. And that's probably 3 points of a triangle, right? And you got to find a place in the middle that's kind of comfortable for everybody. In the end, we discovered that the best place to land would be somewhere in the middle. And by that I mean we have given students at our school permission to have cell phones at school. But we've put restrictions on when they can use those phones.
I really don't think that anyone, regardless of their ability to multitask, is going to be able to pay attention to two different streams of the English language. When I'm at the front of the room trying to instruct, or a classmate's asking a question, or a presentation's going on, the minute they break away from that and look at their text, they're no longer listening to what's happening in the class. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to read and absorb the text. And then when they put the text back and they try to re-engage what's happened in the class, well, they've missed something.
It's the equivalent of them kind of reading a book behind the cover of the textbook, or passing notes around the classroom, or whatever it may be. You know, the potential for distraction or distractedness was always there.
We saw this as an opportunity for them to learn how to behave in a way that's respectful, because out in society there are lots of circumstances where the intrusion of a cell phone into situations is just inappropriate. So why not teach some of that while they're at school?
There should be some sort of like a border between being social and working. Because if you have a cell phone, you can do it literally at any time, but shouldn't there be some sort of line?
Well, there is a line. Like, I don't sit there and text all class. Most of the time I'll like answer all my texts at once, like afterwards. Like, I won't sit there and text during while he's talking, but if it's during my personal work time and I know that I'm going to get my work done, I don't think it matters whether or not I'm texting. And I think maybe for you it might, somebody else, but I can control it myself. I know when and when not to text. I don't need the rules. I don't need the guidelines.
I think we all have to self-regulate, because there are so many opportunities and it's so much fun that we have to say, no, for the next hour or however much time, I've got to be doing this. And then I'm going to give myself permission to go off and watch a video on YouTube or whatever it is it may be, but I have to make those decisions for myself. And we have to have that in our students, because we have to have that in our workers.
It was interesting to me that some of the teaching staff actually asked for permission, or for a clause in the policy that allowed teachers to use cell phones in class, because our generic policy says off and away during class time.
In my classes where you aren't allowed to have your phone, people are sneaking, they're trying to hide it, and I find that really disrespectful. But the same people in the class where they're allowed, they'll just take it out, they'll check, they'll put it away. And I think it's kind of that thing we also have where, we're not supposed to do it, so let's do it.
One of the reasons they're into what they're into is precisely because adults don't know about it. Adults don't understand. Adults can't come in to that territory.
The challenge is when do we deal with power? And most of what kids are trying to push away are adults who hold power over them, and adults who are going to exert that power in a really problematic way, to get them into trouble, to tell them they shouldn't do this, to try to create boundaries.
We have to get to the point where they understand that the device is acceptable, the device is fantastic, use of the device is appropriate, but not at all times, and not to interfere with learning.
Well, there's a presumption that the reason they're texting is because they're bored from whatever the lesson, the lecture is. That's not necessarily the case. If they're texting about the weekend plans, then maybe, there's something that's not connecting with them in the lesson. But if they're texting about the lesson, then they're just enriching that. And we actually have a lot of strategies where we ask students to work in pairs and trios. So we set something up and then we set them loose to talk amongst themselves. Well, we know that they're doing that because the quality of the learning is greater when they converse and when they have to talk about. There's more engagement there. Multiple brains make things work better. And so all of that is something we do intentionally. Well, maybe that's what's happening when they're texting.
Are there kids who push the limits? Absolutely. Are there kids that get sent to the office because they've had their phone out? Absolutely. But I think any school rule or policy, you're going to have those kids that play at the edge of the rule, push the rule, that kind of thing. I would say that the vast majority of kids at our school are completely respectful they're appreciative of the fact that they can have their phone at school, and it's useful for the parents, it's useful for the school, it's useful for the kids, and the teachers, they have them too, right? So same rules apply to the teaching staff as apply to the kids.
You mentioned before, Jake, that you don't carry a cell phone around. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
If I leave it at home, that means I feel free to do whatever I want. Whereas if I have it with me, I have to maybe go in for work, have to cover for someone, have to go in early. But if I leave it at home, I can go skateboarding, I can go hang out with my friends.
Yeah, I do feel on call.
Same
because
with me. I hate it.
Whenever they need a shift or anything like that, and I don't mind it because I always want shifts. It's just I can't always take shifts, and then I have to reply and be like, I'm sorry.
I don't like that though. Sometimes I don't like because the managers all have mine too, and I have theirs and stuff. And then if they ask you to take a shift and you might not, I always feel like, I don't want to take the shift, but I don't want to tell them why, because sometimes I just plain out don't want to take the shift, and I don't want to have to make up an excuse. So then they can tell that I've received their message though, and they know I'm not answering. So that is a downside.
How many parents do we know that say, this is so cool, my company gave me a laptop and a cell phone, and they're paying for it. This is great. Well, why did the company do that? Because they now have an employee who works at home, or who can be reached at odd hours on weekends and holidays and called for business purposes. And so now we have parents who can't set boundaries because they're afraid to say no, and the children see that. And the children say, well, then why am I setting a boundary?
I don't like it. I give them my home number, but they have my cell phone number too, and it really sucks because they all have Blackberries too, so they text me and I have to reply.
If I don't have my phone on me, I feel like I'm missing out on something. I feel because I have 3 different jobs. So if I get a text from one job, I want to go work as much as possible, so I'll go to that job. And even sometimes when I'm done that job, I'll get a text from McDonald's, my other job, and then I'll go in and work there for a little bit. So I like to have my phone on me all the time so I know who's texting me, and I like to keep in loop, because if my boss can't get a hold of me and then I don't have my phone and it's at home and I'm out skateboarding having a good time, whatever, then I'm missing out on making money, and then I look unreliable, and then, I miss out on work later on in life. So
if you can call me on a Sunday afternoon and expect me to do some kind of work, then on Monday morning, I can be sitting at my desk doing personal things. Now, companies are going to like that, but it's tit for tat, isn't it?